Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. So work is continuing on Impulse. The fuselage is back inside the molds now. So I took it out and took those few pictures that you saw in the last mold and weighed it. I didn't trim anything, I just put it back in exactly the way it was. I'm gonna trim the edges and the flanges later. But now I'm getting ready to put the tail on it. So I want it back in the mold because all of the tail molds, they all fixture together and clamp on the flanges at the tail there, and it'll hold the tail perfectly straight. So really important to me to get the angles and the instances right on this airplane. So that's the best way I know how to do it, is to build it in place where it can't move outside the mold. So this is the upper V-tail mold there, and the yellow tape is a representation of where the control surface is going to be. So I'm doing something a little bit unconventional on this airplane. You model airplane guys will know exactly what I'm doing, but full-scale guys, you'll probably cringe a little bit, but that's okay. It's an experiment, and if it doesn't work, I can change it. But what I am doing is I'm going to use Kevlar for a live skin hinge. So the upper surface of the elevator will be completely smooth. The bottom surface, just at the hinge line, will be cut away, and that Kevlar will actually flex and let me have the hinge action. And the reason I'm doing that is because, one, it's very lightweight, but more importantly, it's a totally sealed hinge line on top. Now the bottom side, these are the elevator bottom molds over here. They will get a tape dropout in it to create a joggle at the leading edge of the bottom side of the elevator, and then I will mold a wiper that goes up basically into the structure and completely seals off the bottom side too. Well, I say completely, not completely. There'll be a small gap there, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, maybe as much as an 1/8, but I hope not. And these gap seals will be molded carbon. And one of the cool things about that is I will mold in a lead rope at the leading edge of the bottom elevator. That'll be forward of the hinge line, and that will act as my counterbalance. So since this is all composite, you know, the elevators themselves won't weigh a whole lot. So it shouldn't take more than a few ounces, maybe a pound or so in each elevator half at the most to counterbalance them. So super excited about that. So these molds are just out on the table, getting cleaned up. They've been, you know, laying around dusty forever. And what I'm gonna do with this yellow tape here is I'm gonna cut the leading edge back slightly for positioning, and I'll explain why later, but I'm gonna scribe a line there in the mold. And that scribe line is going to let me place not only the Kevlar for the hinge in the proper location, but it's going to let me stop the core short. So I don't want the core to bridge the hinge line. The core will come up short. There'll be basically a groove in it where there's no core, and then it'll continue out to the trailing edge. So I'm going to scribe that next, and then I'm going to start laying the tape joggles in those molds and start prepping these for paint. So I think I'm going to scribe this next, and I'll show you guys that after it's done. All right, so I kept working and I didn't show you the scribe line, but you can trust me, underneath this orange line here, there's a scribe. Now the orange line is just 1/16 inch fine line tape that I've laid in there. And when I lay the skins in here, that'll create a little, basically a groove that'll let me follow that when I go to relieve the hinge. So basically it's just a guide marker. You can see I've already got the tape joggles in there. Of course, the primer's already in there. And what I've also got done is I've got all the cores cut. So this core is a PVC foam, and it will be sandwiched between the carbon inner and outer layers, along with the carbon, the Kevlar for the hinge. And you can see it's been relieved here. That's where the hinge will go. And that little orange stripe is actually the hinge line. So I've got all those cores cut, along with the rest of these cores. So I got all the foam is cut. So the next step will be to start actually bagging skins on to the molds. So I'm probably going to start with the upper skin first and then do the lower skins after, and then it all kind of has to go together in sequence. But I will try to do a little better job as I'm doing the layups. But for right now, I'm going to start cutting all the carbon and Kevlar and a little bit of fiberglass plies for this, get that all kitted out, and then when I start to bag it, I won't have to cut anything. I'll basically just be able to wet it out and put it in place. Okay, I think I am ready for a layup. So I got the tacky tape all the way around the mold. I got the joggles covered in peel ply, so that's all good. I actually rebuilt the manifold on my pump right there. I think that's where my leak was coming from. So it's holding pressure now, which is great. Actually not pressure, that would be vacuum. I've got my templates all laid out and cut. So this is for the outer skin and this is for the inner skin. So I don't want to cover over the Kevlar hinge. So that's going to be a gap in the carbon around the Kevlar. These actually, when they're in the mold, they're going to overlap a bit, about like that. There's the Kevlar hinge material. That's unicarbon, and what I'm going to do with that unicarbon is on the very inside layer, I'm going to use it to basically control the gap. I'm going to put a little bit of uni down either side of it to get a nice uniform straight gap. You know, when you cut the carbon, even between plastic, it tends to move around a little bit and leaves a little bit of a non-straight edge. Just by using that uni tape, I'll be able to basically make that gap exactly uniform how I want it in a nice straight line. I've got all the carbon blanks cut, and in between plastic sheets, there's actually 4 sets of skins here, obviously cut oversized, and the templates will be used to cut that material out. Everything going in on a bias. What I have not cut yet is I have not cut the peel ply to go over the outside, and I have not cut the bag. That's pretty easy. But I am going to put a little bit of glass over the Kevlar on the outside of the carbon. So I want to totally encapsulate the Kevlar. So there'll be probably a 6-inch wide piece. I can just do that, you know, in real time. So I think I'm ready to go here. So this is a pretty big layup. Well, not big, but it's complex. Lots of layers, lots of intricacies. The core has to be in exactly the right spot. The Kevlar hinge has to be in exactly the right spot. So again, I'll be using these couple of fixtures that I made that bolt to the molds to locate the exact hinge line, because once the carbon goes down again, I won't be able to see where the hinge is supposed to go. So wish me luck there. And this will be, I'm guessing, probably a 3 to 4 hour layup. So I'm gonna eat my Wheaties and get after it. I've got the outer skins down. So that's 3 plies down and a couple extra in the middle just for safety, or just to make me feel better. Not in the structural calculations, but I figure it can't hurt. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my flush trim scissors and just trim back the leading edge just exactly as I can. That just gives me a little bit better chance at getting a real close mate, and I won't have to sand as much. So after that, the Kevlar hinge goes in. All right, the cores are in place, and you can see the Kevlar through the hinge window there. So that all went in nice. This side I left the guide on so you can kind of see how I used it to place the core. But if you get right on top, you can see the hinge window through the cut slot there. So that's all good. And now it's time for some inner layers. Looking good. All the inner layers are on now. And if you look close, you can see this unidirectional tape I've got in here. And that's what I was talking about earlier with the hinge control gaps. So these tapes make a nice even gap. I've got a little bit of glass over the top of that just to tie everything together. Both sides are done. So now all you do is cover it in peel ply and then get it under vacuum. So awesome. I'm about 4.5 hours into this layup, so I'm ready for it to be done. All right, she is done. All the peel ply is down. Everything went down real nice. I'm super happy. I'm particularly thrilled with how nice the hinge line is. So once this gets all bagged down, it'll be all sucked down nice and tight. I'll go around and basically make sure that everything's stuck down good. The core is a little bit stiff, so it's trying to bridge the airfoil. So you can see right here where it's kind of sticking up. That's because the core is not sitting all the way flat into the mold. That's why you need to get it under vacuum. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then we'll let it sit. All right, I'll vacuum down nice and tight. She's all done. Looks real good. Hinge line stayed nice and straight, so it's gonna sit like this until tomorrow, and then I'll probably do the bottom side. Stay tuned. Okay, it's been under vacuum for about 20 hours now. I'm gonna just shut the pump off, and if you listen, you can hear it cracking a little bit. That's just the vacuum coming off. So I'm gonna unwrap it. Let's see what it looks like. All right, let me see if I can share some of the satisfaction with you guys of peeling this stuff apart. This is the best part of composites. I love this part. It's so satisfying. All right. So there it is. Looks like we got a perfect skin. I'm super stoked. Hinge line went down really nice and tight. That's all I was really concerned about, just making sure that was correct. And these little voids here, nothing really to worry about. This is a 1 ounce fiberglass cloth that's right here. And that's just to kind of hold everything together while it's going under vacuum to keep it from moving. So nothing structural there, just we'll just ignore it. Let's look at this side. Yeah, great. Hinge line all looks really good. Excellent. Well, I'm happy. All right, time to get on the bottom skins. I've got the lower skin molds up on the table now. So both lower halves, I've got 3 layers wet out, and I've got the foam in that one. I'm getting ready to put the foam core in that one. And in case I didn't make it clear earlier, if you look at the edges of the foam core, that's the bottom, here's the top. You can see how the tops are fared down all the way around. This is the trailing edge, so it's a much shallower angle. You see that? And the reason for that is once you put the top layers of carbon on, you want the carbon to close out and touch the bottom layer. So you want it to be a perfect seal all the way around. And that basically completes the box structure. It makes it much, much stronger. So if we go over here and look at the upper stab skin, you can see the edge of the core here, and then how it's touching the inner and outer layers are touching, you know, all the way around. So makes for a nice, strong, super lightweight structure. So I'm gonna keep going. I'll have these in the bag here shortly now. 2 layers of carbon on the inside over the tops, and then that's it. This is a pretty simple layup, so get this one knocked out quick. Got all the plies on now, and this one's already had the peel ply wet out. You can sort of see it around the edges there. I like to roll that down real nice. It pulls a little bit extra resin out and then gives me a nice surface on the inside. This side I just laid the peel ply on. I haven't rolled it out yet, so I'm gonna do that now, and then time to go in the bag. All right, those are in the bag, and just turn the vacuum on. It's starting to pull down nice and tight. We're good there. I'm just kind of watching for leaks. It seems to be pulling down just fine though, so letting it build vacuum, and then it'll sit. On to the next part. Okay, so I've got the lower stab molds fixtured in place. They bolt to the fuselage mold right here, right along this seam. And that's the only support, so it's cantilevered out there quite a far, and they sag a little bit. So what I did was I took the top mold, put it on top, and bolted it all together, got that angle correct, and then I'm just using some just basic bracing here. It's just sitting on the floor there, and then I've got a clamp right there to hold it so the angle holds correct. And I'm getting ready to do the lower skins. Now, a couple interesting things about this particular layup is that there's a seam right here where this mold ends and this mold begins. So there's a seam right there. So I've taken flash breaker tape and bridged that seam there. And the reason for that is, as you can see on the other side, I've already got the tacky tape down for the bag. If I didn't cover that and I put the tacky tape across it, that seam right there is going to leak. It's just going to pull air between the 2 molds, and so I won't get a good vacuum. So obviously I'm trying to prevent that. Now, I still have concerns whether that's going to vacuum down correctly or not, because the fuselage that's in here is loose. Remember, I popped it out of the mold. So there is a chance that air could escape from underneath the fuselage as well. So I may have a challenge bagging this down, but I'm not terribly worried about it because it's a very flat part and I don't really need that much vacuum. If I could get 10 pounds or 10 inches on it, that would be more than enough. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'll get as much as I can, obviously, but I'm not infusing it. They're essentially a wet layup, so not terribly difficult there. So this mold is ready to go. I have the tapes in here, the joggles covered with the peel ply, so it's all good to go. It's obviously been primered. There are my stab skins, and I've already got carbon laid out in between plastic, ready to go. So I'll pour resin in there, squeegee that out, and start getting layers in here. So I'm only doing one half at a time, just because it's a management thing. Those big layups are a pain in the butt. And it's Thursday evening after work, so I've only got a couple of hours to do this tonight, and I don't really want to do another 4 or 5 hour layup. So I'm gonna try to knock this out in less than 2 hours, which I think is totally doable. And then I'll do the other side tomorrow. And then we can start working on the internal spar, bulkhead, structure, ribs, all that kind of stuff, linkage, all that's gotta go in before the two halves close. First 3 layers of carbon are down, and I've just placed the foam in here so you can see the foam core goes in there. Now we're gonna put the inner 2 layers on, and then this one's done. It'll go peel ply, breather, and then bag, and it'll get sucked down. So this is going pretty quick, which makes me happy. Okay, layup is done. So I got the inner layers on, and it's just temporarily rolled out there. Well, not temporarily, but I'm not worried about getting it absolutely perfect because it's going under vacuum. So I'm gonna put some peel ply down, and then we'll get it in the bag. All right, he's under vacuum, starting to pull down, and I'm already happy because it's 17 pounds and climbing, which is great. Inches, I keep saying pounds, I mean inches. But there you go. So I'm just gonna kind of go around, make sure the bag is all sealed up tight. I'm gonna watch it for a while, and then it's gonna sit there overnight. And then tomorrow, we'll do that side. Okay, I'm still busy cranking on the tail. You can see that side is done. And I've also got that side done, so that's looking good. Now I'm starting to work on fitting the inner structure. So I'm working on the spar placement and layout. This is the upper skin. I've got the spar caps, the unidirectional spar caps laid in. I just did that. Just a wet layup, doesn't need to go under vacuum or anything like that. I work real hard to get all the air out of the layup, so that'll be just fine for that. And then I built a poor man's angle finder here. I went to Harbor Freight and bought a couple cheap straight edges. They were on sale. I got them both for $5, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, that just sits in here and helps me, I'll back up a little bit, helps me find that angle. Take that, basically that straight edge, laid it on my build table here, and you can see where I basically just laid out the angle. Nothing special there. And I just bonded some 2-pound foam together. So the straight edge will go back over here on the foam, and I will begin laying out my spar. So my spar is obviously one piece. Be a little bit different because there'll be a bottom part here that drops down, and it goes all the way down there to the bottom of the fuselage. So the elevator torque tubes will come in through here. So I have to leave a hole in the middle for the torque tubes to go. And then that ring spar will also be part of my tail wheel structure. So gotta make sure that fits just right. And I'm gonna add a little bit of extra carbon in there, obviously for stiffness, and mainly in the bottom there. My structures guy says I don't need a whole lot of uni for the caps. So I basically took what he told me and I doubled it. So it's cheap insurance. It doesn't weigh very much. Not gonna make a big difference in the overall weight, but a lot in the peace of mind department. So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna start tracing out my angles on there, get that fit. And what I do is I'll get the bottom part fit here against the bottom skin, and get the fuselage part fit in here, and I'll leave it tall. And then I will start bringing over the top mold and take some measurements in between and start basically sanding that down until it's a really nice fit. And then I will put carbon on both sides of the finished spar, and then it gets bonded back in here. Now, before it gets bonded in the bottom, I'm gonna add more uni in here for the bottom spar cap. So just like I did on the top, it'll get the same here on the bottom. It'll get a couple of ribs as well. So I'm gonna get cracking on this. It's early in the week, but I'm gonna try to get this whole thing closed out by this weekend, which means I've got quite a bit to do because I also need to do the closeouts for the elevator and the torque tubes for the elevator, including the control horns and the heim joints. So my only access to that after this is built is going to be through this here. So I want to be able to basically have the push rods in, or at least the heim joints, maybe not the push rods, but the horns, the torque rods, torque tubes, and the heim joints all bolted in, bolted together. So that's the goal. We'll keep at it. So here are all the foam blanks cut and rough fit. You can see I've got the main spar there and then a few little ribs. This doesn't need much structure, so it doesn't take a whole lot. So these are ready to all come out now, and then I will skin them with carbon. That bulkhead there is going to get a big hole cut in it because the torque rods coming down for the elevators have to go through there. So I will skin that first and then, you know, cut the hole and fit it all later. So I'm going to pull all these out and start getting them skinned. Okay, slight change of plans here. As you can see, I'm laying out a very simple mold here. This is just MDF, and it's got the plastic coating on the outside. And what I'm doing here is I'm making a simple mold for the spar. I've decided to mold it instead of just simply skinning it. It's a little way to add a little bit of strength, and it's going to just be easier this way, and I'll have a little bit of peace of mind. So it's going to turn out lighter and stronger. The ribs themselves, I'm still just going to bag carbon on either side of those. Those don't need a whole lot of strength, so I'm not terribly worried about that. But doing this way, I will be able to effectively mold a C-channel in there and then put the foam core in and then bag on another few layers on the outside. So it'll make it all one piece and easier to work on, easier to fit, all that kind of stuff. So this is just a better way to go. And I've just got these hot glued to the table here, nothing special. And then I'll cover with packing tape on the inside, wax and PVA. So getting ready to do that. But I'm gonna end the video here, so that'll be in the next video. Get the spar made, get all the internal structure in, and get the top skin on and closed. And the goal is to get the whole fuselage and tail as one unit out of the molds completely for the last time, which is super exciting for me. So thanks for tuning in, and keep watching. Probably have another video out, maybe another couple of weeks. We'll just see how that goes. So that's it for now. Catch y'all later.